Welcome to another edition of Boxing Info. I'm your host, The Islander, and today is Friday, the 27th of August. Another quick little show, being there's not much going on. Recap of last week's fight between Tomas Adamek and Michael Grant, and a couple little surprises in that fight. First surprise on my part is that Grant lasted the whole 12 rounds. Second surprise is that Grant also hurt Adamek a couple times in the fight. I don't know what to really make of this, except for in back-to-back fights now, Adamek has been able to out-hustle, outspeed, and outwork two fairly big heavyweights in Chris Arreola and in Michael Grant. Michael Grant, much to my surprise, he's seen better days, but actually gave a good account of himself last week, and I don't think he's going to be a factor in the heavyweight division. I mean, that window has been closed a long time ago. Adamek, on the other hand, I'm not so sure after seeing this how effective he's going to be against the Klitschko's, if even competitive at all. I understand I like Adamek, and I think very highly of him, and I think he's a very good fighter. I mean, borderline excellent fighter. I mean, nobody can question his heart or his fighting spirit, but his best chances are probably against the likes of David Haye, and I think that I would push very hard if I was his people to make that fight. And I think it was a good win, but again, it raises some more question marks. Adamek did take a good heavyweight punch in 2 fights in a row now, and he's been, I think, stunned in both fights. But stunned is not anywhere near as bad as being knocked down or knocked out, obviously. And that was a Go Fight TV pay-per-view type thing on the internet. I just, I was a little bit surprised because, like I said, I thought that Adamek would probably stop Grant or win a clear decision as I predicted, but I thought this fight may have been a little bit closer than what the judges had it scored. 118, 110, or whatever it was not, not indicative of what was going on. All right, in the news this week, as most of you know, from last week's show, California State Athletic Commission denied Margarito his license, 5 votes to 1, in which only 2 of those 6 people were on the board that suspended his license. And one of the chairman is the one who was on that board who suspended, actually voted to grant him his license back. Since that time, his people, and let me explain how this works. When a state suspends a fighter, like Margarito was suspended, the Association of Boxing Commissions basically say, and state, or they should say, they tell all the other states or all the other organizations, at least in the United States, you shouldn't consider licensing him until he goes back before the state that suspended him. Once he's gone before a commission, like he did a few weeks ago in California, any state is free to do whatever they want. That is the rule according to the Association of Boxing Commissioners, the ABC. So with that said, Bob Arum was upset that they had to go back before California to begin with. Although they did go back before California and were denied, Margarito this past week went before the state of Texas to ask for a boxing license. And he paid his $20 fee, submitted medical reports, and from what I understand, the Texas commissioners looked very closely at the file California had suspending him, looked at his application for relicensing, and made the decision to grant him a license, and said there was nothing stopping him from being licensed to do his job. Of course, this also means that he's going to be fighting in Cowboy Stadium against Manny Pacquiao, although the contracts have not been signed. Margarito is expected to sign his contract tomorrow, and Manny Pacquiao is in the Philippines, and he'd be flying back to the United States, I believe, sometime late this weekend or Monday, and Bob Arum is reporting that he expects Pacquiao to sign the contract on Monday. The date set for this tentatively is November 13th. A lot of you have been and I didn't continue this from last time when I was going on a rant and a rave about Golden Shower's promotions. Do I think this fight's going to be competitive? You know, it should be a little more competitive than Pacquiao and Clottey was. It may not be as intensively competitive as Pacquiao and Cotto was for the first 4 or 5 rounds. Margarito to me looked just, you know, maybe it was ring rust and just nervousness getting back in the ring when he fought Garcia, but, you know, he's always been slow to begin with his hands and his feet, but he's even a step slower at 154 pounds, and I don't like the fact that this is going to be fought at 154 pounds for either fighter. I mean, I think that if you want to get the best out of both of them, you make it at, you know, at 147 pounds. But they're fighting for some crazy alphabet title. I think it's the WBC, vacant WBC 154-pound belt. It makes the one that Sergio Martinez, you know, had. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, because this going on and on about Pacquiao, it's the 8th weight class. Look, it's another junior weight class. It's not one of the 4. It's not one of the 8 original weight classes. And I don't expect Pacquiao to win another one of the 8 original weight classes. 4 is more than any other fighter in history has ever won. And I'll step back. The flyweight title, WBC version, still it's the main title in the division. The featherweight title, which is the Ring Magazine belt from Marco Antonio Barrera, who had unseated Nassim Hamed, who had won every one of the alphabet titles in the division, so he was the man at 126. At 135, David Diaz's 135-pound belt, and at 147, you know, beating Cotto and all that jazz, is a title in 4 of the original 8 weight classes. No fighter in history has ever done that. They're going on saying this is going to be for an 8th world title. Yeah, the junior middleweight division didn't exist when Henry Armstrong or Sugar Ray Robinson was fighting. The junior welterweight division was just kind of like a sideshow division. It had activity for some time in the past, and then years of dormancy. The junior lightweight division until the 1960s wasn't a weight class, but it's not taking anything away from Pacquiao, because again, by the standards in which Oscar De La Hoya is parading around like a fag, you know, it is something to rant and rave about, being 8 divisions. I take that back. That was a bad thing to say. I'm sorry for anybody who was offended. Oscar De La Hoya is just, he is what he is, and let's leave it at that. Anyway, I don't think that this fight's going to be ultra competitive. I think that Margarito can make things interesting for points throughout the fight, but not for a sustained period in the fight. And those of you who are saying this is a bullshit fight, this and that, you know, look, Floyd Mayweather obviously doesn't want to fight Pacquiao, and, you know, Bob Arum has the right to match Pacquiao against other fighters that are contracted by him. Look, the fights are easy to be made. Don't you get it, people? They may not be the best fights, but they're the easier ones to be made. Why do you think Juan Manuel Marquez was wasting time with Juan Diaz a second time? Because they both fight for Golden Showers Promotions. It's an easy fight to make. That's why they do it. You know, that's why they do these things. Speaking of, you know, and this brings us to the point in which Bunce 101 from Australia was arguing or debating or with me, and I'm not calling you out, I'm just bringing you up, and it's a shout out to you, Buncey, about, you know, the Margarito Pacquiao fight being bullshit, and, you know, Pacquiao should be fighting Marquez a third time. Well, don't dismiss a third Marquez fight. I am dismissing a third Marquez fight, because here's the deal, folks. Since Marquez moved up, since the two of them last fought in, what was it, March of 09? No, I'm sorry, March of 08. Since Pacquiao and Marquez fought their rematch in March of 08, you watch how each of them went. They both went to 135. Pacquiao laid waste to David Diaz, much to my surprise. Marquez absolutely struggled with Casamayor before finally getting rid of him. Pacquiao goes up to 147 and hands De La Hoya his head, much to my surprise, much to my delight. Hands De La Hoya his head. Marquez fights a life and death struggle with Juan Diaz before finally putting him away in the 9th round. Both both times in both fights he was stunned and looked sluggish to me. Okay, Pacquiao then moves down to 140 and blows away Ricky Hatton in 2 rounds, much to everybody's surprise again. Marquez goes and takes a leap because he claims that Pacquiao won't fight him, and fights Floyd Mayweather at a stipulated 144 pounds or whatever it was. You know, he looked good from where I sat, but the fact of the matter is, and he said it after the fight, his punches were having 0 effect on Mayweather. Okay? He stunned Pacquiao a couple times in their first fight at 126 pounds. He hurt Pacquiao pretty bad at the end of the second round with a right hand and left hook combination where he almost made Pacquiao pitch forward on his face, and he hurt him to the body with a left hook to the body in the 7th or 8th round of the second fight. Alright, here's the deal. I have yet to see Pacquiao hurt since he's moved up from 130 pounds. And what's the whole common denominator with this? The common denominator is the fact that Pacquiao, if they fight again, him and Marquez at say 140 pounds, Bunch 101 brought up a great point that Pacquiao will at most on fight night weigh 1 to 3 pounds more than he did when they fought at 130 pounds. What you are discounting and not taking into consideration is Pacquiao will not have to sweat off an extra 10 pounds to make weight on the scale. It is a monster deal when you're talking about 10 out of 140 pounds. You're talking about 7 or 8% of total body weight not having to be lost. It's a huge deal. A huge deal. We already know that Marquez is not going to be able to hurt a true 140, 147 pound boxer in Mayweather. He hit Mayweather flush. Nothing happened. You saw what happened when Shane Mosley hit Mayweather flush. He moved him. Alright? Neither here nor there. Both fights were a whitewash in Mayweather's favor. Marquez is not going to have the ability to hurt Pacquiao at 140 or 147 pounds. The worst case scenario for Pacquiao in a third fight with Marquez is that he's going to win a unanimous decision, very similar to his rematch with Barrera. That's the worst that's going to happen. I think he's probably going to stop Marquez somewhere along the way. Maybe not, but it's going to be. I think it's going to be a dominating performance by Pacquiao. The fight shouldn't be made. And I just read a report while we're still in the news that Marquez is going to stay at 135 pounds and fight Katsides like he should. I personally don't think that that's going to, be a surefire win for Marquez either. Does he have the style to beat Katsides? Absolutely. Does Katsides have the defense that allows Marquez to do massive damage? Absolutely. Now what I want to see is, and this is the key about this fight, Katsides is going to put the pressure on Marquez like Juan Diaz did in their first fight. There's one big difference. Katsides has dynamite in both of his fists. I thought Juan Diaz hurt Marquez really bad in the first fight. Knocked him backwards with a left hook against the ropes. If Katsides lands on Marquez and lands often, don't be surprised if Katsides puts away Marquez. He's a great boxer. He's one of the greatest featherweights of the era. But Katsides is a very big, strong lightweight. Marquez is a blown-up featherweight. Do the math. Do the physics. It's a toss-up fight. I could easily see Marquez winning by a wide decision. Marquez is probably not going to stop Katsides unless it's on cuts. Katsides, if his skin holds together, it's going to be interesting. Now, that brings us to this week's fight. One other thing I wanted to bring up, and some of you have already recognized, can you believe that they are actually, Golden Boy Showers Promotions is actually going to try to sell us a Shane Mosley, Sergio Latin Snake Mora pay-per-view fight? This may be the time, or one of these. Oh wow, Eric Morales is fighting Willie Lamond, who's the same guy that Amir Khan had struggled with a few years back. I think he got knocked down before coming back to stop him. I'm looking down the schedule of when this is. We are going to try something. My networking guy and I have been working on this, in which we're going to, and keep this in mind, it's very important to some of you. a select few of you, 5 or 10, like Die All Day, like Avellino, like Hitman Conan, like Gil, who is AZNEVDS, DZ, a select few of you are going to be chosen to be the guinea pigs, pardon the expression, for this streaming type thing. And it's not going to be done like you're thinking it's going to be done. It's going to be kind of like, to put it in terms, have you ever seen the movie with Marlon Brando and Matthew Broderick called The Freshman, where they have like this high-priced 250,000 plate dinner? It's from like 1990, and the people bought these high-end Eurotrash people think that they're buying like Komodo dragon, that there's only 4 Komodo dragons left on Earth, and that they're going to cook it up and serve them a $250,000 plate. And this festival or this party moves from location to location to stay ahead. This is going to be very similar to this, and we're going to do this as a test run, not on anything major. And I want 5 or 10 of you to partake in this for free, and then you tell the rest of the people how it works. This goes back to the $5 thing, which, if we get this to work right, it'll knock your socks off. All right. It's September 18th in Los Angeles. HBO pay-per-view. Golden Showers Promotions. Sugar Shane Mosley versus Sergio Mora. Saul Alvarez versus Carlos Baldemir. Victor Ortiz versus Vivian Harris. Daniel Ponce de Leon versus Antonio Escalante. Hey, those are 4 actually decent fights. Personally, I don't think the headliner deserves to be on pay-per-view. I mean, I question whether it even deserves to be on regular HBO, to be honest with you. No disrespect to Mosley. I mean, he's a damn good fighter and a Hall of Fame fighter, but with his basic no-show after round 2 of the Mayweather fight, I don't know. 4 good fights. It's probably worth buying. And I don't know that I'm going to test out my thing on this, but maybe I'll wait to hear feedback from you guys. Okay, this week, the big fight you all want to hear, the unification bout at 108 pounds in Guaynabo, Puerto Rico, on Integrated Sports Pay-Per-View. WBO and Ring Magazine champion Ivan Calderon taking on WBA hard-punching Mexican Giovanni Segura. Alright, knee-jerk reaction to this fight. Calderon has boxed many rounds, and he's starting to slow, and he's been caught by guys like Hugo Cazares and knocked down. There is that same danger in this fight. But I'm of the belief that Calderon gets up for the big fights. And what I believe in this fight is, most likely he's going to eke out a decision. Now, the expectation is that Calderon's career is either leveled and starting to decline, and Segura is elevating, and they're meeting somewhere in the middle where the X and Y axis meet. With this said, a lot of you are expecting Segura to knock out the midget. Calderon is a master boxer. Segura has improved somewhat since his 2 fights with the Colombian, where he had life and death struggles for that title. But my knee-jerk reaction is, this fight wouldn't be made in Puerto Rico. How often is it, go back in history, all weight divisions, go back in history, how often is it that we've seen a Mexican fighter go into Puerto Rico and win even a moderately profiled title fight? I scan my mind and I can't think of one. I've seen Japanese fighters and Zuma Nelson go into Puerto Rico and knock out Wilfredo Gomez, score an upset. But how often is it that a Mexican fighter has gone into Puerto Rico and come away with a victory? Right, wrong, or indifferent. It's not often. There's a first time for everything, and a lot of people thought Cazares beat Calderon one of those 2 times. I am going to go on a limb and just say I feel very shaky about this, but Calderon by a very shaky decision, or Segura by a stoppage. And you see, the thing about it is that Calderon, when he's in trouble, knows how to tie up, knows how to stall, knows how to buy time. And I'm not sure if Segura is seasoned enough to put away such a seasoned, classy fighter as Calderon. That's why I'm making this decision to go with Calderon by a very razor-thin decision, maybe even a disputed one. Also in Buenos Aires, not shown on TV, Marcos Maidana defending his interim WBA junior welterweight title against DeMarcus Chop Chop Cooley, who has been reduced pretty much to a measuring stick right now. And we'll see how Maidana does at home. Somebody was asking on my channel about, and the comment got lost with all the economic and the political questions, about hometown fighters. Why is it always thought they've got a big advantage in this and that? Let me clear this up. I don't know if it was Hitman or if it was Lane 66 or somebody who asked me this. One of you asked this on the channel, and I was thinking about it real hard. And here's my explanation to that question. A hometown fighter, generally speaking, has a huge advantage when they are the underdog. When a fighter is a favorite, they generally don't look as hot when fighting at home. And you can go back through history of guys being hammered at home. Most notably, Jeff Fennick getting absolutely blitzkrieged by Azuma Nelson. Jeff Fennick legitimately beat Azuma Nelson, hands down, like 9 rounds to 3 at worst case scenario in their first fight. They insisted, the WBC, he was #1 contender, and immediate rematch was ordered. They fought a rematch in Sydney at a huge rugby stadium in the rain, and Azuma Nelson hammered Jeff Fennick. Jeff Fennick was by far the betting favorite. I thought he won the first fight clear as day. Most of the American media thought so too. Azuma Nelson had a case of malaria. We're not even going to get into this, but there have been numbers, and a magazine did an article about when homeboys got hammered, and almost everyone, one of them was Davey Moore against Roberto Duran. Now, I wouldn't make Davey Moore at the time that big of a favorite over Duran, but he was. He was the true bigger fighter champion, fighting at Madison Square Garden, which really was a monster home field advantage over Duran, because Duran had a huge following all around the world. Got hammered. It's when the favorite is the hometown fighter that things don't normally go as planned. But a huge monster advantage for a hometown fighter when they are an underdog. Do the math. Alright, that's going to be it for this show. Hopefully again next week. And stick with me, folks. Thanks.